I was traveling by car for 10 hours in 2018 to Maryland to see my relatives. I make the trip there many times a year, frequently all at once. That year, I intended to drive the hallways as soon as I finished my shift, which would make me arrive at midnight. When the time arrived, I spent as much time as I could driving. But soon I became so drowsy that I was unable to continue. Only 10:30 p.m. However, I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning because of work. Since I was just a couple of hours away, I made the decision to simply stop over, take a little 1-hour rest, and then continue driving. I stopped at what seemed to be a small rest area. As I was doing that, I was struggling to keep my eyes open when I noticed a sign stating that the building housing the rest stop was closed, but the small parking area was still vacant. I finally parked my vehicle, laid back in it, and quickly went to sleep. I'm not certain how long I was asleep for, but I do know that I was awakened at some point soon after that. I perceived a sound coming from my car's roof. I paused and paid attention because it was, to put it mildly, rather weird. The automobile almost moved, as if there were something on top. Then a soft noise came from above the roof. Upon opening my window, I took a quick peek around, but I noticed nothing. Then I noticed what looked to be a guy's head descending from my car's back window. I was startled by this, so I immediately turned on my engine. As soon as my vehicle's engine started, I noticed a man leap from the right side and dash into the nearby forest, which was just in front of my vehicle and roughly 15 feet away. When I was unable to see him any longer, he raced into the bushes. I was genuinely alarmed by what I had seen. I turned to check around the parking area to determine whether there was another vehicle or anything similar, but there was nobody else there. Then I noticed the individual coming back and coming out of the trees in front of my headlights. This time, he was holding a huge stick that was raised as if he were about to employ it as a weapon. He was moving directly at my automobile. I left no stone unturned in leaving my parking space and starting my car. I instantly felt less drowsy, so I continued driving to Maryland. I visited Georgia on business a few years back. Sometimes, maybe a couple of times a year, I would go across the nation for work. I spent roughly a week in Georgia before taking a trip to my own country. At around 9 o'clock in the evening, I touched down at my hometown airport. I moved to the baggage carousel after getting off the aircraft and walking around the airport. I slept off on the journey, so I was a little sleepy while I waited for the baggage with the other folks. There were several passengers on the trip. Consequently, there were a lot of bags there. After some time of waiting, I started to look up and realized I saw my luggage. But very quickly, a man seized it, began to open it, and then turned to go. I took a step forward to ensure it was indeed mine. And I even realized that I had approached the guy and informed him that the bag in question belonged to me. He apologized, gave it to me, and then left the room swiftly. I was eventually able to depart the airport and return home after I took it. After leaving my car there in the parking area, I stepped in it and made the roughly 20-minute journey home. When I got home, I decided to unpack my belongings before going directly to bed. A weird slip of paper crumpled up and landed on top of all my things as I unzipped my luggage. It was unfolded after I picked it up. The letter stated, "See you at home," in large print. When I thought of the guy who had collected my luggage, I instantly felt uneasy. I questioned whether he left this paper. Was my name on the memo? Maybe he mistakenly believed it belonged to someone else, or perhaps everything was simply a prank. However, I instantly felt uneasy and felt compelled to look out of every window in my house to make sure the area was free. I noticed a car slowly approaching on the opposite side of the street as I peered out the front window. I had no idea what an automobile was. I crouched down and kept an eye on the vehicle until it came to a halt and then shut off. I couldn't see anyone inside the vehicle since it was too far away and extremely dark. I likely spent 3 minutes watching nonstop, The driver's door eventually sprang open. A guy exited. I was unable to be certain, but it's possible that the person from the airport was the same, since he looked very much the same as I recall him looking. However, it was too hard to know for sure because of the darkness. I lowered the blinds and was ready to contact the cops when I saw him enter my front yard. I hurried to my room at the back of the house, where I waited. For approximately a minute, everything was completely quiet. The sound of something scratching against my home's back door then resounded in my ears. I was caught off guard since I didn't anticipate who was coming from behind. I hurriedly sprang up and raced for my front door. As the noises persisted, I prepared to call the police. However, as fast as I picked up my mobile, I heard the rear door open abruptly. After pausing to make a call, I quickly sprinted to the front door, which was fortunately just a few steps away. I sprinted outside to my car, hopped in, and turned it on. I then sped off in my car. I made a police call once I got behind the wheel. I circled the area in my car until I got a call saying the police had shown up at my house. I then returned. Sadly, the person and his automobile were both gone despite their best efforts. My house's back door had been forced open, but nothing inside had been taken or broken. I gave him all the information I could, but I do not believe they ever managed to track down the individual. The most terrifying aspect was when, a few months later, I saw a note on my doorstep without a mailing address. Another wrapped piece of paper with the words, "Why did you flee away?" was inside when they read it. I went right away to the police with the letter. Thankfully, a month later I relocated for work and stopped getting letters or messages. I hope that person won't disturb me ever again. I've never been able to figure out how he discovered my address or discovered which luggage belonged to me. I moved to Los Angeles with my family one year when I was a senior in high school. We embarked on a flight and reached New York at 11 a.m. When we landed, we decided to take a taxi to the guest house that we had booked because it was so wonderful. However, the hotel was of high quality, hygienic, and equipped with all the necessities. After setting our luggage down in the room after entering, we began discussing where to eat. We had been there for maybe 10 to 20 minutes when suddenly, while I was seated on the couch nearest to the door, my foot brushed across something. I noticed a peculiar feeling and squinted to see a person laying on the ground underneath the bed, covered by a blanket. He was unveiled, and while I was taken aback, he stood up. As they turned to gaze at me, my parents shared my amazement. The guy then commanded everyone to remain still in a loud voice. This frightened me when he did that. The man appeared to be rather irate, but after that, he simply got up and left the room. He wore attractively soiled clothing and was tall and quite lean. He reported the event to the front desk when he returned. Even after calling the police, they apologized. They also provided us with a different room and a reimbursement. By the time anything might have been done, the man had already fled, but we were nevertheless glad to see him leave.